Okay, so this is oral history from Miss Beverly Swasey on Hurricane Hattie. Hi, Miss Bev.
Hello, good
So I
afternoon.
have a few brief questions, not too much. Right, so can you state your full name?
I am Beverly Rita Swasey. I am the child, the last child of Louis Swasey and Caroline Ernie Balderramos. I had 7 siblings, but only 2 of us are still alive. The last one and the 3rd or 4th child, both the 4th child, she lives in Australia, and she's been living there for a number of years. Yeah, since 69 or something like that, she moved to Australia. I have 2 older brothers and a younger brother who died even before I was born. He was the 3rd from me. I had my sister, and he was before my sister Myrna. The sister in Australia is Rosalie. She was married Morgan, Rosalie Morgan. So she and I are the only 2 that's left now. The others are dead. My 2 brothers, one died in 2018 and one died in, I think, 2014. That one was living in the States, and my oldest brother lived in La Ceiba. He was a sea captain. He became port captain in Brasilia, and he also he lived in La Ceiba. He died at the age of 88. I was born in Belize City at the old hospital, the general hospital in the old one in Belize City before Carl Huchner came about. Where was my mom?
Your mom.
She was born in Belize City too. She was born to Agnes Bradley and Percy Balderramos, who was from Honduras and came to live here. I think he died of typhoid, or what they used to call black water fever. My dad was born in Belize too, but his mom is from San Pedro Sula and was brought over here by a seaman by the name of Swasey. I can't remember his first name, but he stole her. She as from San Pedro Sula and brought her here at a very young age, and she is the mother of my dad. Yeah. Okay. Her name was Salome Zuniga. My father's mother is from San Pedro Sula, and her husband stole her as a young child and brought her over here and married her, and she had kids. My grandmother used to tell the stories. She used to always come up, because she lived in front of St. Mary's School back in the old days, in St. Mary's Church area in Munyosali. That's where she lived. And we lived in Cinderella Town, which was a new neighborhood that was created under the then government, for low-income families. Mm-hmm. So my mom got one of the houses in Cinderella Town. They used to call it, you hear what the name is, Cinderella. They didn't pay us much attention. But they were little houses with white picket fences, and they developed the streets along the way. Yeah.
And that's in Belize City?
That's in Belize City. That's where I lived as a young child. I went up there about the age of 4. Yeah.
Okay.
In 1951, I think we moved up there. I was 14 years old, and I was going to St. Catherine's then. I was in second form, and well, from the 1931 hurricane, every time that time comes around, we hear of different names of hurricanes coming. And it so happened that, well, that year we heard of Hattie, and we were following the tracking, but then they said it, like Cleveland Berry sang the song. He said, they said it was traveling from Cuba, from Jamaica to Cuba, but like a boomerang, it turned back and hit Belize, my land, something to that effect. So we were tracking it and we thought it was going away from us, but at that same time a cold front was coming from up north. And that was what pushed it back down and it came to Belize.
Okay.
Yes, I was 14 and I was in school, and then the afternoon when we went back to school, they told us to pack our things away, take our books and so on, and go home because this hurricane was heading for us. And so I went home, and I was by myself because my mom was working, my father was working with the Keys because he was a plumber and a mason, and he used to build clinics and so different parts of the country. I think he was on one of the Keys, maybe Key Cork or one of those keys when the hurricane struck. And so only my mom was there, and she was at work. She worked at the hospital. She was a maid. And I had neighbors who watched out for me to look because they knew that my mom was like raising me by herself. Because all my sisters and brothers, except for my oldest sister, lived abroad in the States, in Honduras, in England, in Australia, So, yeah, I was there. I got home and I was by myself, and my neighbors told me that if my mom doesn't come, they will take me along with them when they go. We had the technical high school where we were going. But then my mom came home in time. She reached home maybe about 6:30, and she said, let's go to the shop, let's stack up some things. So she had a soda biscuit. In those days, they used to have the soda biscuit container. It was a tin can with cover and everything, And so we went to, there was a shop almost in front of the technical building from Mr. Pereira. I can't remember his first name now. But he had a shop there, and my mom used to get her groceries there. And so we went there that night, and she packed up bread and bun and cheese, thing that couldn't spoil easily. That's what she picked up. And my brother was in the volunteer guards years ago before that, and he had left a bottle that they used to use as volunteer guards, and I filled that up with water. She said, fill it up with water, and I struck it across me, put on my rubber boots, my long pants, I have one jeans pants, and a long sleeve blouse, and we went along with the neighbors to the technical building. Yeah, and we were in a classroom first. But by midnight, they had to move us out of there because the winds were getting very strong. And the water, too, was going to get high. So they took us into the center part of the building because technical had a 2-3 story part, and then the rest was flat. And we were, one of the flat parts, right? And then they took us out there, and the wind was already picking up because we had to go out one at a time, or else the breeze would blow us away. And so we went up in the center. And as the water started to come ashore and so on, we had to move up the steps, way up into a little area. And people were taking out their rosaries, saying rosary and praying, my neighbors and so on. And we left our house. Our house was 2 bedrooms, a living, dining, and a little kitchen. And then underneath it was a little room that was the bathroom. So we left it, and it was sash windows. So we left, and we took enough food. We didn't take clothes, we just kept on with what we had. And that was, as the water came in, we had to move up the steps because it had steps inside, and we moved up. A whole little group of us, my neighbors and some other people too, I guess, that were related to the staff and things like that of technical high school at the time. And when we looked out in the morning, about around 5 o'clock, it looked like a huge sea. And the sawmill was not too far from where I lived. All the little, all the strips that were cut and so on, you see them, they look like little matchsticks on the water. And we waited there. My mom was like Jesus with the 5 barley loaves and the 2 fishes. Because other people didn't think about that, but my mom has been through several hurricanes. She was through 31, so she knew how to prepare. And so in the morning, she cut bread and bun and put cheese, and everybody who was around that, you know, that's our breakfast for that day and a meal for the day, because after that there was not much, you know. We didn't take fried chicken and all those things. We didn't even have time to prepare that, you know. We had to go. When my mom came, I couldn't do anything without her. So anyway, so that's what we saw the morning, and then we waited until the water subsided a bit, about maybe 4 o'clock in the evening. The water was to our waist, and so we waded through it and went to our house to see what was going on there. When the water was high in the yard too. We had a beautiful garden and lots of fruit trees in the backyard, and all that was gone. So we got into the house, and the mud was like maybe 4-5 inches thick on the floor. And so we took water from the yard and just dash it through and sweep and wash and sweep, you know, till all the mud, most of the mud was gone. I had 2 Wright families, one for a Wallace Wright. He had left, only his son and his mother-in-law and granddaughter lived there then. And then the next house, there were 2 brothers who had land there and built. The other one was Jim Wright. He used to work at Harley's, or one of those places there. And so their house had gone down, dropped off, or blew off or something, because only the downstairs was left. And half of the other brother's house was there, still there. And so we took them in our little house, because all that happened to our house was a pane of the sash window blew out, and apparently water came in very high, so I had my uniform hung up on the wall. You know, we used to hang clothes on the wall in those days. We never have cabinets and things to put them in. So all that was full of mud water and so on. But we washed what we could wash and clean up what we could clean up, but we didn't suffer much. Maybe 1 sheet of zinc flew off. Our stairs were still there. Other houses had turned completely over on their heads. One house down my street. And I don't know much about what other people suffered. As my neighbor, she seemed to have gone through very little too. She was Miss Henebera Small. She and Mr. John Small. and their son Frankie and one Griffey lived there. But after the hurricane, then we had to be scrambling for food. Well, my grandmother had some big pots that we had inherited, big iron pots. And as I said, the neighbor from Mr. Jim Wright and his wife and his daughter, who is she was married, Mrs. Linda Mogale, and her husband and their son, Alan, I think it was his name. They had to move in with us. Janet Wright from Mr. Wallace Wright. She, her brother, and her grandmother was living with us. And then it was me, my father, my mother. And then Miss Lily, the old lady from the house in front of us, from Janet Wright's house. And she had another daughter that lived up the road, and apparently they had it bad too, so they came. And her husband and her daughter Delma. She is now Delma Edwards. She went to live in the States. But all of us were there. My father came in from the Key and he bought a big mattress. And so we put that on the floor in the living room. I had a double bed and we slept across the bed. We didn't sleep lengthwise. We slept across, me, Janet, Miss Louise, Delma, 5 of us, I think, on the bed. And then my mother had her bedroom too with a double bed. And the boys slept in there. Johnny, Alan, Bootsy, John, I already said his name, but both 4 boys slept in the other room, and then the big mattress, the older people slept on, Mr. Jim, Miss Eileen, Mama, Papa, Mr. Owen, that was Miss Louise's husband. They slept on the mattress, and then I used to sleep, but we had a small 3/4 bed in the living room against the wall. It used to be used in the daytime like a chair, but then in the night we slept on it, and so that bed was given to Pastor Mugel and her husband and her little son. 3 of them had to sleep on that. And then for food, we used, Janet and I, especially the one who owns the house opposite me, she and I used to go out scavenging and looking at the Y. They used to give out clothes. Then at Palote had just started a homemakers, the Palatine High School, that started out as a homemakers thing. Girls used to go there to learn to cook and sew and things like that. And so that building was there, and we used to go pick up some things from there. And we used to go, when we hear a shop is giving away things, we go pick up. And then as I said, my grandmother had this big pot, and my mom and Miss Eileen and Miss the other older lady, Miss Louise, they used to make Johnny cakes and bread and so on. We used to light a fire because we had no gas and things like that. So we lit a fire hard, and that's how we used to bake and cook and things like that. It was the 31st of October, maybe about around the end of December or nearer Christmas time, I guess. We got lights back. Water, well, we had a drum that we used to catch rainwater in, so we had to wash that out and throw that and continue getting, because I remember just after the storm, it didn't take too long for lights to come back on, because I remember there was a circus that came into town by where Princess Hotel is now. There was a circus that came in there with rides and animals and so on that performed. Because I remember the Blue Danube Waltz was playing and an elephant was like dancing to the Blue Danube Waltz when we had a hailstorm after the hurricane. We had a hailstorm. The hail wasn't too big because by the time it hit our veranda, and so it had melted, but you could hear it beating on the roof. Before the storm started, the wind started blowing. They had to shut down the circus the night. We had to run home with thunder and lightning. It's the lightning that like guide us through the way. So electricity must have come on because that was there, and that was in November. I know lots of people died, but I don't really know who they were because I used to see the bodies floated on the side of the road. And I used to see this truck when it went around and picked up. Yeah, there were several deaths, but I don't know who all really died. I can't remember if somebody died that I knew. Because after that too, you went back to school and you didn't see some people, you didn't know what happened to them. Some left and went to the States, and the school was not open back until like the February of the following year, 62.